All right, Richie Mars, we're here to talk Evolution. Jordynne Grace challenging Jayce Jane for the NXT Women's Championship. Jordynne Grace, right off the rip, I'm surprised she's not NXT Women's Champ. I figure coming out of that Stephanie Vaquer match, it was kind of her time to crown her as Julia and Vaquer were kind of graduating to the main event.
Mhm.
I'm surprised she's not the champion, but I like what they did with JC. The shock factor was legit shocking, and I think she's done a good job as a transitional champion. Now, I say transitional champion for Jayce Jane because I suspect a champion not called Jayce Jane sooner or later. Would that be Grace, or is Grace just kind of filling in the star power until she's needed on the main roster? All that being said, what do you take of Jordynne Grace right now in NXT?
I think Jordynne Grace is there just to kind of hone the WWE style.
Okay.
Because I think for a lot of people, they didn't really think that Jordynne Grace, in their opinion, was necessary for NXT. But it's not like a bad position for her to be in, because I'd rather be a main focus on the minor show first than getting lost in the shuffle right away on the main show. And we've seen that before with people who got called up to the main roster who aren't ready. So, thankfully, Roxanne Perez, you got Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, all there in prominent positions on WWE television, or at least like getting strong reactions. And I feel like if Jordynne Grace were to get called up, I think she would have kind of gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit. But now I think with her in NXT, at least for the time being, it puts a lot more focus on her. And it's not just like the Stephanie and Julia show like it was, or the perceived notion of it until Jordynne came back. So, yeah, I really think Jordynne Grace is in like a very good position, and especially the implications not only of this being a championship match, but at TNA Slammiversary, we're going to get a champion versus champion match. So whoever wins this match right here is going to be facing Masha Slamovich at Slammiversary, title for title, and we already saw what happened when an NXT star won the TNA championship. So there's a potential repeat and intrigue here for Jordynne. It's like, oh, she won the NXT title, and then she could potentially become Knockouts champion again. So it's like there's that added factor as well.
Yeah, and she has that history with Masha too, but behind the scene and on screen too, like being her best friend or whatever. So that's an interesting layer as well. When is Slammiversary, by the way? Just to kind of put a ball on that.
July 20th, so the week after.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. I do think that presenting the NXT Women's Championship and being the first match announced for Evolution is perfect for the NXT Women's Division, because some would say it's the best women's division in all of wrestling for the last 6 months, 8 months, however you want to look back. Raw or SmackDown should be better, but from a pacing standpoint, I could see that argument, of course.
Yeah, from pacing and rotation standpoint.
Yeah, rotation's another really good word for that as well. But presenting them here on Evolution first and really presenting Grace in this match is interesting to me, because I was a little bit worried about Grace coming out of the Julia match, where her and Julia had a great match, but Grace was kind of reprimanded a little bit after going a little rogue out there with Julia and having that strong style. And it was a great match, and it just wasn't approved beforehand. So I thought that, oh, maybe Grace was a little bit kind of slapped on the back a little bit and said, hey, we don't play that game here. But I'm glad that she's presented here, and being presented here in the first match announced and for the NXT title is only showing that her star in the future is going to be bright. How long do you see her in NXT? How much longer, anyways?
I could see her being in NXT probably till around Survivor Series.
Okay, so that would be almost a full year, because she came in at the Rumble and then went to NXT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so even though she's flirted with it for all of 2024,
Yeah,
even being in the Rumble and then having a Roxanne pay-per-view match and all that stuff. So she's been holding hands in NXT for almost about 18 months as of now. So yeah, I did suspect her to get called up in that like mini class, but I feel that she would have been lost in the shuffle. I thought that she was going to be kind of linked up with Naomi, because they have a history there, and then she could kind of be Naomi's heater as they push Naomi to the card. And I thought that'd be a great spot for her. I'm not ruling that out, inevitably going there, but I guess the timing wasn't right for Naomi there. So maybe protecting her long-term star power was smart in your opinion too.
Yeah. I do. I did hear like a rumor that like she was gonna get paired up with Motor City because
Really?
DIY added Candace. So like Jordynne would be like kind of like the X factor to like introduce her, and Candace would probably bump really well for her in the initial. But not sure how long term that would be like good for her, just because with Motor City and just the tag team division in general,
Yeah, they've been
don't really
feuding
get
since January.
they don't really like have like the necessary TV time to justify that feud, and we saw on SmackDown that it looks like it's continuing between DIY and MCMG. So, could it be like a nice little like SummerSlam match or anything like that? But again, you want to like if you're always gonna debut as an associate to an act, it might like kind of like dampen like the impact a little bit.
Yeah, that's an interesting role for her. Maybe if Machine Guns and DIY weren't so deep in their feud,
Mhm.
from a longevity standpoint, that might have been a good role for her. But that seems like a very Ivy Nile-ish of
Mhm.
her in limited, where I feel like her upside is much higher than
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So in retrospect, I'm glad they waited, even though I was a little bit shocked that they did, because I thought that she could have been on that Vaquer and Julia level, but the plans didn't really shake out. Interesting. I didn't know about the Machine Guns. That's an
Mhm.
I like it on the surface, but the more you think about it, I don't know if it would have like really worked
I
to
mean,
the
it has the
extent.
TNA connection, which is
Yeah,
always nice if they want to promote the TNA,
yeah.
partnership with NXT. Yeah. However, I think short term it would have been fine, but I think long term, depending on how long it goes, I'm not sure if it would work out that well. But yeah, it's just like one of those things. But we're talking everything about Jordynne Grace, like you said, like with Jayce Jane, like her being in this role is pretty perfect. With like you said, transitional champion, but also being kind of the one that's kind of bridging this gap between like this match. You have the Great American Bash match, the tag match, and then you have the week later the potential unification double champion match at Slammiversary.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a lot to take in, and especially with Blake Monroe,
I was
who
just gonna
people
bring her
are
up. Yeah.
yeah, who people are pegging as the next NXT champion. It's a lot thrown at you at once.
With Monroe on the horizon, it doesn't really feel like Grace is opportune to take this belt, because you feel that Grace is slaughtered as a babyface. And I don't know where they want to use her on the main roster, but to kind of shake her up and face her against Monroe wouldn't really do her any justice. And then you might as well have Jayce Jane beat her and only, elevate her stock more for when Blake defeats her. It means much more, even though we
Mhm.
both agree she's transitional. What do you think about depths of Fatal Attraction? Do you think they got more depths besides this like upper mid card gatekeeper role?
Well, I mean, I think JC and Fallon are definitely people that fans want to see on the main roster.
Yeah,
And I because with JC, I think she's been down in NXT for quite a bit, and Fallon, I think, not too far after that. But I think a lot of people see Fallon having more upside than
yeah.
JC. But with JC, she's in like a really like good spot that I feel like she's in that like almost Sean Spears esque spot, that veteran role where it's like you could see them kind of like being a center focus of the faction, but you're not sure if they're going to push that leader of the faction, if that makes sense. Same thing with Andre Chase of Chase U, where it's just kind of like, all right, he's gonna like bunker down this kind of faction, and then we're gonna kind of use that to have the other members kind of hone their craft, and then they're gonna feud, and then we're gonna see what happens from there. But JC absolutely deserves to be on the main roster, or at least like, given a shot, because I feel like her and Fatal Attraction will do well on the main roster. But at the same time, we're getting that Fallon JC feud where it's kind of like it's like, oh, we were fighting, but now ever since JC won the NXT championship, they're not fighting as much anymore. So I think we might see that come ahead at NXT Grand American Bash, maybe some miscommunication. You have Blake Monroe or Jordynne pin JC, and then JC retains here, and then you're gonna have all that kind of mix mash dissension between a group, because again, don't have a lot of time to build up to the next match that JC could potentially be in that Slammiversary match for title.
Yeah. What do you think's more appealing? Slama versus JC or Slama versus Grace with Grace's TNA history?
I think on paper, Grace looks a little bit more like the better matchup that I think people would see, because it's like, oh, wow, like Jordynne over here on NXT now facing her friend who's, the Knockouts champion. So it's like, I feel like people would gravitate for that match initially, and especially in ring as well. I think and plus with it being like TNA's anniversary show,
Yeah.
You know, having Jordynne in there just makes it more like more sense and appeal wise. But with JC being over there, it really will kind of like bring this divide over like, you know, TNA versus NXT. And I think it would be like a huge interesting kind of matchup if that were to occur, and see if like people see it's like, oh, if JC wins the Knockouts Championship or Masha wins the NXT Championship, like you have like a lot of different talking points that will happen like during that show, and for good or bad reasons, depending on if you like the TNA partnership, if you don't like the TNA partnership, it's going to be newsworthy unless it ends up in a, you know, a schmaz, you know. So
Yeah.
just kind of depends on your view of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I dipped my toes in TNA. I wish I had like a cable service that showed it weekly, but
Mhm.
my YouTube TV does not. With so much wrestling, there's only so much bandwidth, and I read the results, and I like what they've done on NXT. It's just an accessibility and a
Mhm.
type of thing with me, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, and hopefully, like TNA, I know they've been shopping around for different channels, so who knows? Maybe we'll see TNA on the CW, because the CW has said they're open for more wrestling on their channel. So we could be seeing TNA on CW.
that'd be interesting. Maybe it'd be like the ECW 1 a.m. spot on a Saturday night.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious what they do, because NXT crushes the CW ratings wise. They
Mhm,
they kill it. They do awesome. So I'm
mhm.
curious what fraction TNA would get there as well, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, I have an outside the box question for you. We talked this about being a transitional time for the NXT Women's Division. We talked about this being the peak of the NXT Women's Division. Out of these four names, who are you buying the most stock in the next 5 years? Blake Monroe, Jordynne Grace, Julia, or Stephanie Becker?
Stephanie.
Really? Who's
Mhm.
second?
I'll go Stephanie, then Blake, Jordan, Julia.
Okay, actually, surprisingly agree. I might even flip Blake and Vaquer. But Vaquer's so good in the ring. So,
Mhm,
and there's art. She's already over,
mhm,
right? But I think Blake's upside is a little bit higher
mhm,
potentially. But I would
mhm,
take her the safer vet and go Vaquer. And I'm surprised that we both had Grace over Julia. I
mhm.
like Julia. She had a bigger name coming in, of course, but
I
I feel
I
like
think,
Grace has
yeah.
maximized her minutes a lot more than Julia has. We'll see. The U.S. title will be big for Julia.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Julia's gonna be in that Walter Gunther role, right, for the women's US championship.
Yeah,
Like, she's gonna make that her championship.
and she needs it. Yeah,
Yeah, like, the thing is, like, she not only, I don't even think she needs it, it's more like she's gonna, like, bring like, she's gonna elevate it as long as they give her the proper platform, and whether WWE does or doesn't, that's on, their, choice, and that's their cross to bear, you know? So it's like, I really do think that, Julia is gonna be like a very good like I hate using this, but it's like it's gonna be in like that very good like 1B role,
yeah,
you know, where it's like she's gonna be like the person that they're going to feature like here or there, but she's not gonna be like the main character. Like how Gunther is as world champion. Yes, he deserves it. Yes, he should be featured more, but he's not gonna be promoted like a CM Punk, right? He's
yeah.
not gonna be promoted like a Cody Rhodes, you know, as much as we want him to be kind of like the center of the show, it's just not going to happen. And I feel like with Julia, I think there is potential to do that with her. Like, I mean, look at Io Sky, you know, she got over pretty much organically this year,
Mhm.
like for being a baby face. So it is possible, but I'm not sure if, at least with the positioning right now and like just with the other names involved, I'm not sure if Julia's chances are going to be abundant as it were previously, because like you said, over the past couple of years, we're getting more and more talent from NXT that's going to be infiltrating the main roster, and it is just like a dominant field of personalities, not only in ring but personality wise, physical charisma, all that.
All right, we're at the end here. I think Jayce Jane is the safer bet, and Fatal Influence will probably play a role in the finish as well. Maybe Masha afterwards kind of equals, so we can go home happy here with Grace. But yeah, I feel like JC's time is still now as champion.
Mhm. Yeah, I think JC's the safe bet. I think JC's going to win. I think we're going to see Masha probably in the front row, probably Masha or Blake in the front row when they shoot her, and then JC's just going to like hold the belt up. They're going to plug Slammiversary for a sec, and then just kind of go on from there.
Yeah, we have the Great American Bash, where is JC and Fallon versus Jordan and Blake Monroe, two the day before. So I doubt that plays any factor into that, but I
Mhm.
feel that that's where Jordan kind of gets her win. leading in, right? That's safe to say.
Yeah, I could see Blake getting the pin on there because then you
Yeah,
could
their team,
transition. You could transition to Blake and JC depending on whether JC wins or loses the NXT Women's Championship, and just kind of go on from there.
Yeah, I'm curious of the inevitable pop that Monroe would get to at Evolution in the front row for this match, or however they present her. So I feel that it's a big pivotal show for women, and I'm curious how they present her, because I do kind of harping back on what I said earlier. I think she has the most upside out of any woman in NXT right now.
Mhm.
So
Well, I mean, I think she's like, right place, right place, right time. They
yeah,
have she's young enough where it's like NXT is not going to be a hindrance to her. She's talented.
wants to be
Stardom.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, wants to be there. Stardom, AEW experience exactly, where it's just like she was probably in the best like women's feud in the past, give or take 20 years.
yeah.
You know,
With a legit blow off, that was great. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I think the last one that was like really like that like great, where it's like you're like kind of glued to the TV scene, was probably like Trish and Mickey, where it's just like month after month, like it just kind of
Yeah.
like keeps building and
How it
building with
built
each
up
other.
within that proper blow up.
Yeah, where it's just like that story was like a year, and you don't really see that nowadays. You'll see like pockets. It's like, oh, a couple months here, stop. Next year, a couple months there, So I think Blake Monroe is gonna be a force for the foreseeable future. But with Stephanie McCare, she just like connects with the people. Like you can't like formulate
No
that
doubt.
connection, and like Blake still has time to formulate that connection.
Yeah, it's just I don't think either of us are wrong. All right, Richie, it was fun here. I'm actually kind of looking low key excited to this match. I think it's going to be good on a kind of loaded presentation wise. This is under the radar, and I think they can kind of surprise us at Evolution.
Yeah, I think they give them enough time. They're gonna knock it out of the park.
Cool. All right, Richie. See you on the next one, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.